Hey, thanks for checking out Down to Basics. Today I'm going to do a video on upper extensions and chord symbols. So my goal by the end of this video is for you to be able to look at a majority of chord symbols and know how to make those chords and what you're supposed to play over them. So when you're making a chord, typically you start with a triad. Triad, just like tricycle, triangle, it means three. So a three-note chord is a triad. Typically, you use your first, your third, and your fifth scale degree, 1, 3, and 5. So if you have a scale, let's say C major, where you have C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then C, your octave or your 1. So your 1, 3, and 5 would be C, D, E, F, G. So C, E, and G. So you're alternating every note. When you get to upper extensions, that's where the notes that you skip come back in. They just have a different number. So if I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, the ones that we usually use, I'm going to write their upper extension equivalent. And of all of these, there are only 2 that stay the same, and that's 1 and 7, because they have special roles in the chord that we're going to go over a little bit later. So my 1 stays 1. But if I continued numerically, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and my next 1 numerically would be 8, which means after that would be 9. So 2 is 9. So if I continue, 2 is 9, 3 is 10, 4 is 11, 5 is 12, and 6 is 13. Now next I get to my next 7, but we don't call it a 14. We call it still a 7 because it has a very important role in the sound of the chord. So I'll just put another 7 up there. So your intervals and your upper extensions. Your regular intervals are in red and the upper extensions are in green. So that's all well and good. It's just numbers. Now it's sounding like math, not music. So what a chord symbol does is really, it's just a way of telling you explicitly which notes the composer wants to use. But it's a way to do it with by saving ink. A lot of the housekeeping things we do come from really old-fashioned techniques of saving paper or saving ink. So this is one of those reasons. So I was talking earlier about the special roles that these intervals have in a chord symbol. So the first one, tells you the root. So I'm going to put an R down here, R for root. That just means what the notes tend to move around, your tonal center. It's just the key of that chord. Maybe key is not the best word because key kind of means like the whole section. It's just the root, the base of the chord, if you're using a bass, B-A-S-E, like what it's based off of, not like bass voice-wise. It's basically saying if you're using these numbers, this is where you count from. Okay, so your 2, you won't see a chord symbol that says like C2. You will, however, see a chord symbol that says C9. And they put a 9, not a 7, because the composer or arranger said specifically, I want the sound of a 9. So that's why they say 9. So I will put next to that 9 in parentheses, flat 9 in parentheses, and a sharp 9 in parentheses. So you would see chord symbols like that. So what I have written in black is what these intervals or upper extensions, which are still intervals, tell you about the chord. Okay, so next one is your third, a very, very important interval. It tells you the quality of your chord. It tells you if it's major or minor. The only difference between a major triad and a minor triad is your third. So I'm going to put a triangle or a minus sign next to it. That's how I denote major or minor. You can use a capital M. You can abbreviate it M-A-J, all for major. You can put a lowercase m or abbreviate M-I-N for minor. Again, to save ink, I do a triangle for major and a minus sign for minor. So that's what 3 does. Cool. All right, now my 4th, my 11th. Again, you won't see something like a C4 chord, but you will see a C11. So that just says it's your 4th scale degree. That's all that says. So I will put 11 and I will put sharp 11 up there. So you will see those in your chord symbols. If it's a sharp 11, it says take your 11th or your 4 and raise it up a half step, make it a sharp. So if you're in the key of C, that's what I tend to be using so far in this video. If you're in C, you have C, D, E, F. Now if I have a sharp 11, that F becomes an F sharp, up a half step. Cool. Now the next one, the 5th or the 12th, this one gets a little interesting. Now I told you before that with a minor triad and a major triad, the 3 is what really changes. The 1 stays the same and the 5 also stays the same. So you can kind of figure out that the 5 doesn't really tell you too much about the quality of a chord. A lot of different quality chords have just a 5 in it. So 5 is an optional interval unless you explicitly say something like it's a minor 7, flat 5. If you explicitly say flat 5, then you know to use that. So I'll put a flat 5 in parentheses. And 12 is the exact same thing as 5. Now notice these numbers are higher than 7, so typically these are up in octaves. So your 12 is just a 5 up an octave. I will also put a flat 12 in parentheses. So you will have intervals like that. That's what your 5 or 12 does. Cool. Your 6 or your 13, you can actually have a 6 chord. It means explicitly put in a 6. So I'll put a 6 in there. And your 13 means you have all the intervals up to there, including 13. Now, since I got to the last one, my last upper extension, 13, I'm going to talk about the implied 7th. That's not like an actual term. That's just something that I use to talk about the 7th. So, when you're talking about just straight up 7th chords, I think I even have a video on 7th chords. You have minor 7, you have major 7, and you have 7, your dominant 7. 2 of the 3 of those have a flat 7 in it, which already tells you that more often than not, your 7 is flat. If you want a natural 7, or a major 7, rather, you have to explicitly say major 7, or major 13, major 11, major 9, something like that. Otherwise, it's implied that the 7 is a flat 7. So, we talked about alternating intervals. So, you would have 1, 3, 5, if you're including it. And then, from there, you would go up to 7. And then from 7, you would go to 9, 9 to 11, and 11 to 13. Now, if you notice, even though I was alternating, I have a 1, 3, 5, and 7 on my red side, and I have a 9 and 13 on the green side. Now, if you carry those check marks over, it looks like I used every interval in there, every note of the scale, if I'm using a 13 chord. Now, where the implied 7 comes in, let's sing a C13 chord. Or to really bring this together, let's try a C minor 13 chord, and let's see what's in that. So let's break it up into its parts. The root, the quality, and upper extensions. So I have a C minor 13 chord, something like that. So the C says that you're based off C, so 1 is C. It's a minor, so that means my 3rd is flat. So C, D, E, flat. My 5th is optional. We talked about that before. But what is my fifth? C, D, E, F, G. So it's a G. I'll put it in parentheses because it's optional. So now I have my triad. Now I need to know what kind of 7, because that comes next. 1, 3, 5, 7. It says minor 13. So because it doesn't say major in there, I know that it's a flat 7. So I'm going to put a B flat in there. And now I'm up to my upper extensions. Next is my 9, then 11, then 13. So my 9 is D, my 11 is F, and my 13 is A. So now I have all the notes that I used in a C minor 13 chord. So this is just a short way, little bit of ink, to say use all of these notes. So if you take the steps that we covered in this video and you just break your chord symbols into those different parts, the root, so you know how you're counting what the intervals are, the quality, is it major, is it minor 7, flat 5, half diminished, whatever your quality is, and then your upper extension. Does it say add a 13 on top, go all the way up to 13, all the way to 11, or 9, or whatever it might be. If you follow those steps, then you can easily figure out what is in the chord. You can play around with the order for different voicings, and you can also figure out how to play a melodic line over it. So hopefully chord symbols are not that scary anymore. Thanks for checking out Down to Basics.